Pompano Beach, Florida, a picturesque coastal town known for its sunny beaches and luxurious homes. But in April 2019, this slice of paradise became the backdrop for a brutal and heart-wrenching crime. A young woman, thrilled by the happiest news of her life, would never get the chance to see her dreams come true. What should have been a time of joy ended in betrayal, violence, and murder. This is true crime, the untold stories. Today, we delve into the tragic case of Gemma Degano, a wife and soon-to-be mother whose life was taken far too soon. Gemma Degano was a 29-year-old elementary school teacher in Pompano Beach, Florida. She was well-loved by her sixth-grade students at Palm Crest Elementary, known for her patience, warm personality, and ability to make every child feel special. Parents often praised her dedication. She spent countless late nights grading papers and planning creative lessons. Born and raised in Florida, Gemma came from a close-knit Italian-American family. She was the youngest of four siblings, with two older brothers, Archie and Arnie, who were fiercely protective of her. Her parents, Art and Gina Della Bella, owned a small family-run bakery, Della Bella's Pastries, for over 2 decades. Growing up, Gemma spent weekends helping at the bakery, rolling dough, and decorating cookies. That same work ethic carried into her teaching career, where she constantly strove to make a difference in her students' lives. She attended Florida Atlantic University, majoring in education. During college, she joined the Future Educators of America and spent summers working at the Boys and Girls Club. Gemma dreamed of becoming a school principal, but more than anything, she wanted a big family. In 2014, she married Mark Degano after a whirlwind romance. They met at a charity fundraiser hosted by a mutual friend, and their connection was instant. Mark, a confident and charming real estate broker, swept her off her feet with his grand gestures. Weekend getaways to Key West, lavish dinners at restaurants like Cafe Martirano in Fort Lauderdale, and a beachside proposal at sunset. At first, their life seemed perfect. They lived in a beautiful home just a short drive from the Pompano Beach Pier, and Gemma looked forward to building a future with him. But beneath the surface, trouble was brewing. Gemma began to notice Mark's late nights, unexplained absences, and flirtatious behavior with other women. Friends whispered about his wandering eye, and though she never caught him in the act, deep down, she knew. Then, in April 2019, Gemma received life-changing news. She was pregnant with twins. Overwhelmed with joy, she saw it as a fresh start and a chance to finally be happy, even if it meant no longer being married to Mark or raising the twins on her own. On the morning of April 9th, 2019, Gemma's older sister, Jessica, grew anxious when her calls and texts went unanswered. The two had planned to meet for breakfast at Lester's Diner, a beloved Fort Lauderdale spot they had frequented since childhood. Gemma was always punctual, and she never ignored her phone. After several failed attempts to reach her, Jessica decided to drive to Gemma's house. The elegant home sat in an affluent neighborhood just a few blocks from Pompano Beach. As she pulled into the driveway, she noticed Gemma's car parked outside, which only deepened her concern. She knocked on the front door and waited. No answer. She rang the doorbell. Still nothing. Remembering the spare key hidden beneath a large ceramic flower pot on the porch, she retrieved it and let herself in. The house was eerily still. The familiar scent of fresh coffee was absent. Jessica called out, her voice trembling, but the silence was suffocating. Heart pounding, she made her way toward the master bedroom. As she pushed open the door, she was met with a horrifying sight. Gemma's lifeless body lay on the floor, partially wrapped in a crumpled bedsheet. Her skin was pale, her lips slightly parted, as if she had tried to gasp for air. A deep, dark bruise encircled her neck, the unmistakable mark of strangulation. The bedroom, normally neat and serene, was in disarray. A nightstand lamp had been knocked over, its bulb shattered. A framed wedding photo of Gemma and Mark lay face down on the dresser, its glass cracked. The weight of the moment hit her like a wave. Her legs buckled, and she collapsed to her knees, a scream tearing from her throat. For a long moment, she couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Then, with trembling hands, She reached for her phone and dialed 911. When the dispatcher answered, her voice was barely a whisper. "My sister, she's dead." Pompano Beach police arrived at Gemma Degano's home just minutes after Jessica Della Bella's frantic 911 call. The flashing red and blue lights of patrol cars reflected off the wet pavement as officers secured the area, keeping curious neighbors at a distance. Detective Oliver Fortier, a seasoned investigator with 20 years on the force, took the lead. Known for his methodical approach, Fortier had worked on some of Broward County's most high-profile cases. He was joined by Detective Ellis Illenden, who had a reputation for noticing the smallest details others might miss. Inside the house, officers moved carefully, documenting everything. The crime scene was unsettling. There were no broken locks, no shattered windows, nothing to indicate a forced entry. The only sign of struggle was on Gemma's body, bruises on her wrists, and a deep ligature mark around her neck. Whoever had done this had been close to her, someone she had trusted. The master bedroom was in disarray. A nightstand lamp lay shattered on the floor, its cord tangled around the base. The bedding was rumpled, and a bedside drawer stood open, its contents spilling onto the floor. A jewelry box remained untouched, and Gemma's purse sat on the dresser, still holding her wallet and keys. This was not a robbery. Near the body, officers found a leather belt. It had been left discarded near the foot of the bed, and upon closer inspection, it appeared to have been used as the murder weapon. The belt was later identified as belonging to Gemma's husband, Mark Degano. Illenden carefully examined Gemma's body, noting the signs of strangulation. The killer had used great force, pressing down hard enough to leave deep bruises on her throat. Her fingernails were broken in places, suggesting she had fought back, clawing at her attacker's hands or the belt around her neck. Detective Fortier pieced together the evidence. There was no sign of an intruder. The attack was personal, deliberate. Someone had been close enough to her to enter the house without a struggle. Someone who knew exactly where she would be. The investigation quickly turned toward Gemma's husband, Mark Degano. Mark Degano, 44, was a successful real estate broker in South Florida, known for selling high-end homes in Fort Lauderdale and Miami. His polished appearance, smooth-talking charm, and confident demeanor made him popular among clients and colleagues. But outside of work, Mark had a different reputation, one of a womanizer. Friends admitted he often flirted with other women, even when Gemma was nearby. Some had even heard the couple argue about his infidelities in the past. Gemma's sister, Jessica, told the detectives that Gemma had long suspected Mark of cheating, but had never found the strength to leave him. When the detectives brought Mark in for questioning on April 9th, 2019, he arrived at the station looking disheveled, his usual confidence shaken. He claimed he had been with a client at a luxury condo showing during the time of Gemma's murder. He insisted he had nothing to do with her death, appearing shocked when the detectives revealed the crime scene details. But Mark's alibi quickly fell apart. The detectives pulled his phone records and discovered that his phone had been pinging off cell towers near his home the entire evening. He hadn't been in Miami as he claimed. He had been in Pompano Beach. Security footage from a neighbor's doorbell camera showed Mark leaving the house just after midnight, shortly after the estimated time of Gemma's death. He drove away in his black Mercedes-Benz, alone. The detectives noted how calm he looked, as if nothing had happened. Then there were the scratches. Mark had deep, fresh claw marks running down his forearms, the kind that could have been made by someone fighting for their life. When asked about them, he gave a rehearsed answer. He had fallen at the gym while lifting weights. Detectives weren't convinced. The autopsy report revealed Gemma had likely scratched her killer during the struggle, desperate to pry the belt from her neck. The marks on Mark's arms lined up perfectly. Detectives pressed him further, but Mark refused to change his story. He was confident there was no solid proof tying him to the murder. But with every piece of evidence stacking up against him, investigators believed they had their prime suspect. Vanessa Henders, 19, worked as a stripper at Vixen's, a popular gentlemen's club in downtown Fort Lauderdale known for its exclusive VIP section. Vanessa had a reputation for being bold, flirtatious, and always the center of attention. Detectives learned that Vanessa and Mark had been seen together multiple times over the past few months. Some witnesses even claimed they saw the two having sex in Mark's car in the club's parking lot. Others described heated arguments between them outside the club. When detectives brought Vanessa in for questioning, she was defensive from the start. She insisted she had nothing to do with Gemma's murder and claimed people were dragging her name into it simply because of her past with Mark. She admitted they had been seeing each other casually, but said the relationship was over. Vanessa provided a strong alibi. She had been working at Vixen's the entire night Gemma was killed. Security footage confirmed her presence on stage, performing one of her signature routines, a provocative dance culminating in her suspending her naked body with her long legs wrapped around a vertical pole. Multiple patrons and coworkers corroborated her story, but the footage revealed something else that piqued the detectives' interest. Just hours before Gemma was murdered, Mark had visited the gentlemen's club. Security cameras caught him entering the VIP section where Vanessa was working. The two spoke for nearly 20 minutes. Witnesses described the conversation as heated, with Vanessa waving her hands and Mark leaning in close, his expression tense. Had Mark been planning something? Was he confiding in Vanessa before committing an unspeakable act? Or was Vanessa more involved than she claimed? A deeper look in her phone record showed that Mark had called her 3 times the night of the murder. The last call placed just minutes before he left his house after Gemma's death. But without direct evidence linking Vanessa to the crime, detectives had to keep looking elsewhere. Vanessa walked out of the police station that day a free woman, but suspicion clung to her. Some believed she knew more than she was saying. Others wondered if Mark had used her as an emotional crutch before doing the unthinkable. For now, she remained a person of interest, just not the prime suspect. On April 12, 2019, just 3 days after Gemma Degano's murder, the Broward County Medical Examiner's Office released its official autopsy report. The cause of death was confirmed as strangulation, with severe bruising around her neck and signs of a violent struggle. But the report contained something else, something that changed the entire investigation. Gemma had been pregnant, and Mark wasn't the father. Forensic specialists conducted a routine DNA test on the unborn twins. The results revealed that the biological father was someone else. This discovery sent detectives in a new direction. They now needed to find out who Gemma had been involved with, how long the affair had been going on, and whether this secret relationship had played a role in her murder. Detectives scoured Gemma's phone records, emails, and social media accounts, looking for clues. A pattern soon emerged: late-night texts, hidden calls, and a name that kept coming up: Dr. Riggs Cresswell. Dr. Cresswell, 35, was a respected pediatrician at Memorial Hospital West. Well-liked by patients and colleagues alike, he had a reputation as a devoted physician and a happily married man. But behind closed doors, he was leading a double life. Riggs and Gemma had met at a charity gala in 2018. She had attended as a guest of a fellow teacher, while he had been one of the event sponsors. Witnesses later recalled seeing them deep in conversation that night, laughing and exchanging numbers. Over time, their connection grew into something more. While Gemma struggled in her crumbling marriage, Riggs was also unhappy in his own. By early 2019, their relationship had turned into a full-fledged affair. When Gemma discovered she was pregnant, she was overjoyed. She saw it as a fresh start, a new life away from Mark. She planned to leave him for good. But Gemma never told Riggs that he was the father of her twins, nor did she ever intend to. They were just two lonely people who had found each other in a vast, indifferent world. The detectives found no evidence that Riggs ever knew about the pregnancy. The news of Gemma's affair fueled Mark's rage. He had already suspected she was hiding something, but the confirmation, likely discovered the night of the murder, pushed him over the edge. Gemma had planned to tell Mark that she was pregnant with another man's twins and that she wanted a divorce. But he found out before she had the chance. Mark didn't kill his wife in a jealous fit of rage. He killed her over a betrayal he never saw coming. A hypocrite to the core, Mark couldn't accept that Gemma had been unfaithful, especially after years of their marriage had been marked by infertility. The fact that she became pregnant with another man's children was a humiliation he couldn't tolerate. Now, detectives needed to prove it in court. As detectives dug deeper into Gemma Degano's murder, a new name surfaced: Leo Degano, Mark's older brother. At 47, Leo had a checkered past. Once a decorated officer with the Miami-Dade Police Department, he had been fired in 2015 after an internal investigation uncovered misconduct involving excessive force and falsified reports. Since then, he had bounced between security jobs, struggling to keep steady work. Leo had never been fond of Gemma. Family members recalled tense holiday gatherings where he barely spoke to her, and former coworkers mentioned that he often referred to her in dismissive tones. He had always been loyal to Mark, defending his younger brother's behavior even when others disapproved. With his troubled history and open dislike for Gemma, Leo quickly became a person of interest. Detectives questioned him about his whereabouts on the night of April 8, 2019. He claimed he had been at home watching a Miami Marlins game and later met up with friends at a local bar, Flanagan's, a popular South Florida chain known for its seafood and casual atmosphere. Detectives obtained security footage from multiple locations. Cameras outside Leo's apartment complex showed him leaving just before 9 p.m. and arriving at Flanagan's 20 minutes later. Additional footage from inside the bar captured him drinking with friends until well past midnight. Transaction records confirmed he had used his credit card for multiple purchases that evening, including a bar tab and a rideshare trip home around 2 a.m. With this airtight alibi, Leo was ruled out as a suspect. There was no way he could have been at Gemma's house during the estimated time of the murder. That left detectives with only one viable suspect: Mark Degano. The evidence against Mark was piling up. His alibi had collapsed. His fingerprints were on the leather belt found near Gemma's body, and scratches on his forearms suggested a struggle. Now, with Leo eliminated from the list of possible culprits, detectives focused all their efforts on building an ironclad case against Mark. As authorities prepared to make an arrest, they faced one final challenge: finding a motive that would stand up in court. Gemma's affair and pregnancy had shattered Mark's pride, but prosecutors needed to prove that these revelations were enough to drive him to murder. Time was running out, and Mark was starting to sense that the walls were closing in. On the morning of April 15, 2019, detectives arrived at the sleek downtown Fort Lauderdale office of Degano Realty. The high-rise building was bustling with professionals in tailored suits, unaware that one of their colleagues was about to be taken into custody. Mark Degano sat at his desk, scrolling through his phone when officers entered. At first, he was composed, greeting them with a casual confidence. But as soon as Detective Oliver Fortier informed him he was under arrest for the murder of his wife, the color drained from his face. Colleagues stood frozen as Mark was handcuffed, his expensive Rolex glinting under the fluorescent lights. Employees whispered as he was led out of the office, escorted past the glass-walled conference rooms where he had once closed million-dollar deals. At the station, Mark remained silent until investigators presented the autopsy report. When they revealed that Gemma had been pregnant with twins who weren't his confident demeanor shattered. His hands trembled as he leaned back in his chair, muttering, "That's a lie. Gemma would never cheat on me. Nobody makes a fool of me. Nobody." Gemma's family had been dreading this moment, but when the call came, confirming Mark's arrest, the pain hit them like a fresh wound. Her mother collapsed onto the couch, weeping. Her father gripped the kitchen counter, shaking his head in disbelief. Jessica, Gemma's sister, couldn't hold back her sobs. She clutched Gemma's favorite sweater, the one she always wore on chilly Florida nights, and whispered through her tears, she deserved so much better. News of Mark's arrest spread quickly. Local media outlets covered the story, with headlines like "Pompano Beach realtor charged in wife's murder" appearing across South Florida news stations. True crime forums dissected every detail, speculating about Mark's motive and the identity of the twins' real father. As Mark sat in his holding cell, the reality of his situation sank in. The life he had built, the luxury cars, the nights at high-end Fort Lauderdale clubs, was gone. He wasn't just facing the loss of his freedom. He was facing the consequences of his own blind rage. The case against Mark Degano was airtight. Now, It was only a matter of time before justice was served. By the time Mark Degano's trial began in early December 2019, the case had become one of the most talked-about crimes in South Florida. Inside the Broward County Courthouse, the prosecution, led by District Attorney Ursula Yersley, laid out a damning case. They described Mark as a cold, narcissistic man. They showed jurors security footage of Mark sneaking out of his home the night of the murder, as well as photos of the leather belt found near Gemma's body, the same belt he had worn in real estate promotional photos. Witnesses took the stand one by one. Gemma's sister, Jessica, broke down as she described finding her sister's lifeless body. Forensic experts explained how Gemma had fought back, her fingernail scrapings containing traces of Mark's skin. A financial analyst testified that Mark was drowning in debt, contradicting his image as a successful real estate mogul. The defense, led by defense attorney Stephen Tennyson, tried to counter these arguments. They claimed Mark had acted in the heat of the moment, overcome with emotional distress after learning of Gemma's affair, that she was pregnant by another man. They painted him as a desperate man who snapped under pressure. It took the jury just 4 hours to reach a verdict. On December 10, 2019, Mark Degano was found guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom was silent as the judge handed down his sentence. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. Mark barely reacted. He stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched, as if he still couldn't believe what had happened. Gemma's family held each other, trying to process the moment. There was relief. Justice had been served, but it didn't erase the pain. The holidays were approaching, and instead of celebrating, they were mourning a daughter, a sister, a mother who never got to meet her unborn children. The case of State of Florida versus Mark Degano became a tragic reminder of how jealousy, betrayal, and violence could destroy lives. Mark would spend the rest of his days behind bars, while Gemma's memory lived on in the hearts of those who loved her. Hey, interested in more real-life murder mysteries? Be sure to like our content and subscribe to our channel for more true crime stories. Do you have any thoughts about this case or have a case of your own you'd like us to investigate? Leave us a comment. Until then, stay safe. Mark Degano now spends his days inside the concrete walls of Florida State Prison, a far cry from the luxury waterfront homes he once sold. The man who had once attended exclusive real estate galas and driven a sleek black Mercedes-Benz now wears a prison uniform, his future reduced to a lifetime behind bars. His fall from grace was complete. Vanessa Henders, the stripper whose name had been dragged into the investigation, wasted no time leaving Florida. She cut ties with old friends and moved out of state, hoping to start over far from the scandal. The media circus surrounding the case had been relentless, and she wanted no part of it. Leo Degano, Mark's older brother, remained in Florida but distanced himself from his sibling. After the trial, Leo made it clear he wanted nothing to do with Mark ever again. Once a police officer with a promising career, Leo's past mistakes had cost him his badge. Now, his brother's crime had forever tainted their family name. For Gemma's family, the pain of losing her never faded. The trial had delivered justice, but no sentence could bring her back. That December, instead of celebrating the holidays with Gemma's laughter filling the room, they faced an empty chair at the dinner table. Determined to honor her memory, Gemma's family created the Gemma Degano Memorial Scholarship, offering financial aid to young women pursuing careers in education. Gemma had always believed in the power of learning, and her loved ones wanted to ensure her passion lived on. In the months following her murder, donations poured in from across the country, many from people who had never met Gemma but had been moved by her tragic story. The scholarship was just one way Gemma's name would be remembered. Friends shared stories about her kindness, her ability to make others feel special, and the way she lit up any room she entered. Gemma Degano's story had ended too soon, but her love, her dreams, and her legacy would never be forgotten. Infidelity, deception, a brutal murder driven by fear and selfishness. Gemma Degano's story is a tragic reminder that even in the most picturesque places, darkness can lurk beneath the surface. This has been True Crime, The Untold Stories. Until next time, stay safe.